Hi, fellow trumpeters. Thank you for joining me today. We're looking at number 66 in Max Pottag's collection called Preparatory Melodies to Solo Work. And this is something most trumpet players don't do because trumpet is not really a solo instrument per se, although it can be. If you play in a jazz combo, you're a soloist. But this is to develop, at least within traditional musical styles, sensibilities and skills that apply to you being a soloist, which means you're leading the audience through an experience. So I'm going to play number 66 and hopefully lead you into a musical experience. Here we go. So I find these very challenging. What I mean is they're not particularly trumpetistic, at least not this one. It's got this lyrical style that's got a lot of agility, a mixture of articulation and slurring, a lot of dynamic changes, which is pretty typical of these little preparatory melodies. So I'm just going to let you know the things that I've had trouble with and that I know from my experience that most trumpet players are going to have trouble with. If you look at the bar at the end of the first line, you have some octave slurs, and of course there are lip slurs as well. So I'll just play that couple of bars, and I'm sure you'll remember it. If you try it, you'll remember it. So in order to play the music successfully, in order to play it in a way that's enjoyable to you as the player, and that some of the rest of us can also enjoy when we're listening to it, it has to have a certain amount of grace, you might say. And sometimes navigating those octave changes is going to be difficult. So that's a basic technical skill that you need in order to play something like this. These things can be very frustrating. So what I try and do, my basic approach to practice, is I try and make it easier or do it in a different way so I don't get stuck basically proving to myself that I'm not a very good trumpet player. And that can happen very easily. Let's say I practice those two bars and I just pound away at it like so many of my students do. I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not blaming anybody else. But I'm not making any progress. And that means if to make progress, something in my playing and the way that I'm playing needs to change, or the way I'm using my mind, the way I'm paying attention, the way I'm listening, what I'm aiming at. So this is a kind of a process, practicing is a kind of process of self-evaluation, and then goal orientation, and then letting go of old things that are dead or dying, and moving toward new things that have the possibility of life in them. So how would you practice that slur? Well, I'd start with smaller intervals. But the first thing I might do, and I've shown you this many times, if you watch my videos you know, is I might try and buzz it. And the primary reason that I would buzz it on the mouthpiece, or on the lips alone for that matter, is that there's no feeling of resistance between the notes. I have a smooth, easy sound production. So let's see where I am here. So now I feel, from my experience, I know I'm pinching a little bit with my lips, and this is going to be a problem that a lot of players have. So let yourself just play a little bit with more release, not push, not drive, not even throw, but more release. It's like a baseball pitcher when they're throwing the ball, especially if they're throwing heat and throwing 100 miles an hour. It's a good idea to actually let go of the ball. If you don't let go of the ball, it's going to be a pretty painful procedure. But the idea is all the energy that your body is producing is being directed into the ball, and then the ball goes flying away. When we do this, it's a continuous throwing, you might say, a continuous release, and we're always trying to control with our lips. So that's one of the big problems that I have when I'm practicing something like this. Also, another problem that we run into, which is very much present in most of these little etudes, is dynamics. So the simplest, best advice I can give you is find the most natural sound production in terms of physically feeling not only competent, but comfortable, and maybe even like you're enjoying the process. It's a physical satisfaction, you might say, in not only the quality of the sound, but the way it feels. So you have an aesthetic satisfaction in the beauty of the sound, and a sense of physical balance, you might say, in the production of the sound. Now this takes a lot of time. It starts with your long tones, simple sustaining exercises like the Clark, and then moving through slurs. This is why when I ask most players in any genre what they practice, most people say, Schlossberg, Clark, and Arbin. Now partly those have become popular right now, but mostly it's because pretty much everything you need to practice is contained in those books. It's how you do it that's the question. So how would I practice this? Well, I'm going to try and produce a sound where I'm enjoying the beauty in the sound. Allow yourself to enjoy the sound of your own voice. Obviously, I'm somebody who enjoys the sound of my own voice a lot because I made a lot of these videos. Actually, it's not true. I find it quite annoying. But to actually allow yourself to enjoy the qualities, the musical qualities that you hear in your voice, or if you hear things that you don't like, to use that as a motivation for, wait a minute, that's not my real voice. I can sound, that doesn't sound like me. I can sound better than that. And this is, again, in your simple exercises. So when I'm changing dynamics, and I find this one particularly difficult. It says piano. At the beginning, on the first note, and the first note is dee-da-dee-da, is a quickly moving note, goes to another note, and it's on an upbeat, ya-da-dee-da. So all those things kind of conspire, for me anyway, to make me tight when I start. I have a real psychological problem with this, and I find that many trumpet players do. So there are many ways to get past this problem. Let yourself experiment. So how can I get that sound that I want? Well, I know if I play a little bit louder, I can get the sound. Or if I use my tongue to kind of put a button on that note. So now I've got it. It's maybe mezzo forte. Good. Now I've got the note started. I'm going to try to tongue those. Oh, I notice when I tongue them, they're a little bit easier than when I slur them. Now, I'm a curious kind of person, so I'm wondering about that. There's a reason why it's easier. But even if I don't care to delve into what is the reason and explore how can I use that information to improve my overall playing, I'm still going to think, well, that's easier to tongue. I'm going to go ahead and tongue it. And those of you who are teachers, and those of you who we're all students of the trumpet, you might say, but those of you who are very observant in other people's playing, you'll notice that when people have insecurity with a lip slur, they'll oftentimes tongue the upper note. So I'll just tell you what one of the reasons is for doing that. When you tongue the note, you get a little burst of sufficient air energy through the note. Now you might be tight, you might you might be stiff and tight, but at least you're getting enough air to actually have the lip vibrate. It might not sound beautiful, you might not be able to sustain it, but at least it gets the note. So if you find yourself kind of instinctively kind of poking at the notes with the tongue, what that really means is you're not letting the air from your body carry the note directly. You have to intervene and give it a little boost with the tongue. So playing it louder helps you to feel that. So now I'm forcing past my lip. Pinching with my lip and kind of driving the air because my lip is now stiffer. So, but there's a place where the lip feels free to vibrate. I'm going to demonstrate that for you just with a lip buzz right now. Okay, I did a lip buzz. Now my lips are very tight. I have to be engaged so that I get that vibration, but how I stroke with the air, that's a different question. That's how I'm using the bow. So if my lips are too tight, I can always just keep blowing harder in order to force the vibration. This is the problem that most trumpet players have when they're playing. So what's the solution? Find the place where your sound is the most beautiful, pleasing to you, and find the dynamic range where it's easier and the pitch range where it's easier, and work it there until that gets comfortable, and then spread it into different dynamics, different ranges, and different articulations. That's why I believe it was Rafael Mendez said, all you need to practice is scales, 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 and scales. And that's because by going up and down through the range and adding articulation and changing dynamics, you covered all your basic sound production challenges on the trumpet. Sometimes you play them fast, sometimes you play them very slowly and sustained. There it is. Those are all the ingredients you need to play this music. I'm going to work through answer another couple of questions that some of you may have. When you look at these, you'll see a notation where there are dots on the notes and what looks like a slur underneath the notes. I've addressed this before, but it's basically, it calls for a musical decision on your part. So from the beginning, there are no such markings. So I'm choosing a slightly separated and yet sustained ta 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 ta. It's kind of like what I just did with my voice. Ta 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 ta. Not ta da 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 or ta 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 ta. So clear, well pronounced, and flowing. When you see the dots underneath the slur, to me that is that kind of articulation. Only now it's more fluid. So it's like a slur, only clearly articulated. So your standard articulation might be ta 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 ta, that's slightly separated, and then this legato articulation, you might call it, is more connected, more like a slur. Now that takes mostly listening on your part. It's just a matter of putting your ear to it. Now that's a tiny detail. You may be struggling with other much more significant issues before you can play this piece well. But what I actually find is helpful for me in the way I work is, gee, if I can hear something, I wish I could make it sound like that. How should it sound? Another example that would be dynamics. So you get to the end, I'm going to take the second to the last line. And it starts mezzo forte, diminuendos to piano, has that connected articulation, and then goes down to pianissimo. See, I'm already starting to get nervous about that because I'm already feeling the old habits, the common patterns of discomfort that I associate with playing some of these things. And I basically want to teach myself I don't need to do that anymore. I can do this. I can do it. At least I can play it all at a comfortable volume. But I'm going to try and put the whole package together for you because I hope it will be helpful. I'm going to play the pickup to the second to last line. So within that line, within a couple bars, you have piano, pianissimo, piano, mezzo forte, forte. And that's very typical of these. Do not ignore the dynamics. Pay attention to the sound quality and see what it's possible for you to do. If you stretch yourself in that way, you're going to be improving your playing all the time. One more thing on this, I mentioned a little bit before, you have to start on an upbeat, you have to start on a note that moves very, very quickly. So a common thing that I will do is simply play the first note at a comfortable dynamic level and sustain it so that it's steady. And I find when I'm working with my students that most students can't actually sustain a note with complete stability. So that's the first thing to work on. So I'm going to play the first note and just sustain it. This is how I recommend that you practice it. Anytime you have something that moves quickly, like, for example, the ballerina solo from Petrushka, you're playing the first note, immediately move to the second note and into the shape of the line that you're playing. And for most people, starting that is difficult. Same thing with the Ravel piano concerto solo. That's kind of psychologically difficult for a lot of players. So we're trying to solve the psychological part. Let me just first find the target on the note before I actually have to move. I was a little tentative on that, and I'm not going to care about that. I'm just going to see, can I get comfortable with just singing that note? Not literally singing, playing the trumpet as if I were singing. So what I'm looking for, and I don't know whether you'll be able to hear this in this medium, you may be listening on your phone and not have high fidelity, but I'm looking for the sweet spot where I have the most complexity in terms of overtones in the sound. I have most high, middle, and low overtones in a balanced blend that are free to vibrate as much as possible and completely stable. The timbre, the color of the sound is totally stable, not just the pitch. That's the first thing to do. Now, once you have that, then you know the target that you're aiming at. So the first thing you do is establish the first note just as if you were going to hold it for a long time. So I hope that helps you with this pickup problem, which is a considerable problem that I've had in the past. It just takes a lot of diligent practice in order to get that, in order to basically prove to yourself, wait a minute, I can do this. So go do that now, and I'll see you when you have a moment to spend with me some time later. All these videos I'm making you can find them in playlists on my channel, and so if you find the Pottag videos helpful, there are a whole bunch of them in there that you can play at any time that you want. And for me, it's like going back to reading scripture, for example, or going back to something, maybe a poem that has particular significance to you. Or a letter that someone has written to you that meant a lot. You're going back to a kind of a memory of something that reinforces the positive things that are happening in your life. So you can go back and work on these and gradually make progress over a period of time. So go and do your work, and I'll see you later on. Bye-bye.